So breakups suck. This is a universal truth I think that we can probably all agree on. Whether you're the dumper or the dumpy, the breakup's probably gonna suck. What people are a bit more judgmental of is how we handle our breakups. Because at the end of the day, people are allowed to break up with you for any reason they want, because they don't like the way you smell anymore, because they don't like the way you dress anymore, or even just because the sky is blue and you're expected to just kind of take it on the chin. After all, what else are you gonna do? Refuse the breakup? Say no? Lock them in your basement and start your next "it puts the lotion on its skin" arc? No. No, we're not gonna do that. No, you just gotta kind of take the L and move on. But what if they break up with you in a really shitty way? I mean, what if they really screwed you over and you are just not ready to let them walk away that easy? Is there ever an appropriate time for maybe a little breakup revenge? These are all questions a woman named Jillian Lavin, better known for her stage name Sprightly, asked herself before releasing a breakup song that would become massively viral, detailing how she got unexpectedly and abruptly dumped by her boyfriend of 3.5 years. Let's take a look.
Imagine you live in LA with your boyfriend and everything's going amazing till he says, babe, I want to move back to Texas to be closer to my dad. So you give up half of your career, quit your improv troupe and have a goodbye party. Take off months of work, deplete your savings to pay for movers and drive to Texas. So worth it for the love of your life that wants a future with you because he said so. So you spend a month waiting for your shit to arrive, and then another month moving in and building furniture and stuff, and you're so happy till he comes back from a family vacation, sits on your couch, which just arrived in the mail, and hands you a note that says we have nothing in common and we're incompatible. Oh no, how did I not know this whole time? 3.5 years of happiness, we've been incompatible this whole time, and that we had nothing in common for 3.5 years. How did I not notice? Wow, what a surprise. Thank you for informing me that this whole time we had nothing in common. So you back up your car wherever you can fit it, just getting your grind too hard so we have to back it for you, and then you drive to Florida to live with your mom.
The caption reads, anyway, how have you been? Hashtag breakup, hashtag blindsided, hashtag horror stories, hashtag heartbroken, hashtag healing, hashtag X. And at this time of recording, this video has almost 55 million views. That is like an unbelievable number. Like, that number doesn't even seem like a real number to me. That is a lot more people than I've ever known about any breakup I've ever had, or probably even my existence. I mean, to give you an idea, this is what roughly 100,000 people looks like. Now imagine 550 of those. That's how many people watched her breakup song. And it went viral because so many people were kind of like shocked and dumbfounded and also impressed by her creativity. I mean, I think we've all been ghosted, but getting abruptly ghosted with very little explanation after 3.5 years. 3.5 years is not an insignificant amount of time. I feel like a lot of people would actually expect like a whole proposal by that point. Then you add in all these extra details about her reorchestrating and reorganizing her entire life around this guy just to get suddenly dumped via high school style note. Like, it's so crazy that it almost seems unbelievable. And unbelieve the internet did. While I was expecting Sprightly to get the usual cheers and affirmations of girly post-breakup support that every conventionally attractive young woman is bound to receive after telling the internet that she just had her heart ground and pounded John Jones style, surprisingly, Sprightly was really met with a lot of pointed fingers and questions. So, referring to when he said that he wanted to move back to Texas, one commenter says, "Girl, that's on you. He said I, not we." Sprightly replies, "Yes, and then we never talked about it again. All those weeks of packing, he never once asked where I was going. Then I totally surprised him in Texas. Where did I go wrong?" So, clearly explaining a bit facetiously that indeed he knew the plan, he agreed to it seemingly. But she wasn't the only commenter to say something like this, another woman says, "But he wanted to move. He never asked you to move." She again clarifies, yes, he did. Imagine he moved to Texas and I just showed up. LMAO, that would be a whole nother story. True. And in another comment with over 10,000 likes, because when he said he'd moved to Texas, he was trying to break up. You were not meant to move with him.
Huh?
And I don't understand where these arguments are coming from, because if it's true that he did not want her to move with him to Texas, it's still his responsibility to tell her that. It's his responsibility to break up with her. You can't just subtly imply that you want to break up and then deem that a breakup. Like, who taught you guys that that's an appropriate way to break up with people? Like, oh, babe, what are you doing here? I implied that I wanted to break up yesterday. The hell? I feel like at any point that she was quitting her job and her hobbies and throwing goodbye parties and packing up all of her things to move across the country, he probably could have just handed her a similar note that said, maybe you shouldn't do this. And then other commenters were judging her for the whole, like, crying too hard to be able to pack for herself thing. Someone saying, hard to feel sorry for people who cannot move things themselves. Who in their right mind moves and then has to wait for all their belongings to arrive a month later and then takes another month to get settled? They both seem to have issues. Sprightly says, I guess you've never moved long distance or done the math. Yeah. Someone else says a month's off work to move, a month to receive your stuff, a month to move in. But I will say, yeah, moving from LA to Texas does sound complicated as hell. I've moved a few times and it is never easy. In fact, it is probably one of my least favorite things on this whole planet. I hope to do it as few times as I have to again in the future, but I've got to imagine that it's got to be even harder to move at such a great distance. But eventually we do start to see some empathy in the comments. Tom saying he handed you a note. Your life is going to be so much better without this guy. And she actually made a video response to this comment.
I wish that I had handed that note right back to him and said, no. This is not happening. Whatever you think this is isn't happening. I just moved across the country for you literally a month ago. We committed to a future together. We very explicitly talked about this and committed to it. Now is not the time to give in to the doubts. You had time and you didn't, and therefore you owe me more than a fucking no. I moved for you. I live here now. This is our house, and we can talk about this, and maybe we'll still break up, but it's not gonna be like this. I really wish I had done that, both for me and for him, because we had so much love for each other and still do. Like, once I get over this, I want to look back fondly. How am I supposed to look back fondly on this? He just ruined 3.5 good, beautiful years by doing this. Something that's just so insane that millions of people on the internet are coming to my aid. Like, he's a good man. He's a good person. It's just so out of character for him, and it's just such a tragedy for us both. I just wish I had refused the note, said, we're gonna talk about this for a week. At the end of that week, maybe we'll still break up, but it will be less traumatic and psychologically damaging than whatever the hell you're doing to me right now. And at the end of this week, if we break up, maybe there'll be a chance that we can still have a respectful relationship at some point in the future. But I was too shocked to do that, so here we are.
Okay, so she really did try using the whole refusing to break up card. Or at least she's saying that she wishes she would have. And like, I don't know. Do you think that actually would have made anything better? Like, do you really think it would have made a difference? Like, in the grand scheme of things, you just said you'd probably have ended up breaking up anyway, and like the collateral heartbreak, I don't know. Do you think it would be that significant? Yeah, sure, maybe you'd have a better chance of being friends with your ex, I guess, but how many of us like really need to be friends with our exes? I don't know. Do you guys think that it would have worked? Has it ever worked? Comment down below if you have ever literally refused to break up with someone and you are like together still to this day and in love. It's got to have happened at least one time. Anyway, she got a lot of support in the comments on this video. A lot of people seem to be in agreement that the way that he broke up with her just like sucked and was terrible, and that's the big issue. Caesar says he couldn't even use a fresh piece of paper for that note. It was written on the back of something else. That should speak volumes. Narf says he's not a good person if he did this through a note. A good person doesn't end a relationship like this, in my opinion. I'm kind of torn on this one. I don't think I have a black and white opinion on whether a breakup note is fully, completely unacceptable or not. Then when one commenter says, "How has it been tragic for him? He's near his family and kept the house. He knew the consequences and didn't care." Sprightly actually responds with a video, and the caption says, "I hope all his friends see this," passive aggressive heart emojis, "and realize how much grace I had for their boy for holding out this long." Okay, so we're getting vindictive. But before we play that video, let's take a quick moment to talk about today's sponsor, Manscaped. Because listen, fellas, new year, new you. Last year, we let ourselves get a little shaggy, but not anymore, because this is the year of the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra by Manscaped. As we slowly crawl out of our hibernation for the season, the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra can help you speed run trimming off all that extra overgrowth. Let's start with the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This grooming powerhouse features 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, the skin-safe trimmer blade for precision and the skin-safe foil blade for that close, clean cut. And it has 3 unique settings so that you can find your perfect length of either silky smooth or scruffy sexy. It also comes with an LED light. But even cooler, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra also adapts to your skin tone for the best lighting. How sick is that? It's also waterproof, making it super easy to clean up while shaving in the shower. Also included in the kit is the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer. We might not talk about it, but a ton of people grow thick, dark hairs in their nose and ears, and it is so much nicer to use a waterproof, painless tool to get rid of it all than trying to wrestle through the tears of plucking each one out individually with tweezers. And Manscaped always keeps your deepest treasures in mind with the Crop Preserver and the Crop Soother. I definitely recommend following up your trim with this aftershave lotion and anti-chafing deodorant to avoid itchy dryness and razor burn. Because some places should just remain sacred. But that's not all, because this package also includes 2 free gifts. The Boxers 2.0, equipped with a special jewel pouch to keep everything cool and comfortable, and the Shed 2.0, so you can easily store these tools and more wherever you go. And you can try this package risk-free with Manscaped's 30-day money-back guarantee. So get your Performance Package 5.0 Ultra today to start a clean slate with new habits on grooming. So you go ahead and get 20% off that package, free international shipping, and those 2 extra bonus gifts when you use my code Dadvocate at checkout at manscaped.com. Thank you, Manscaped. Me and my husband love you. Okay, back to the show.
All right, well, y'all win because I hate him. I hate him so much. I'm consumed with rage. In the first month or 2 of heartbreak, I would oscillate in between being so sad and missing him and heartbroken and betrayed, and then I would get to hating him, and then I would hate hating him because I spent 3.5 years loving him. I was allergic to hating him. My body, my mind, my brain, my heart would rebel and say, no, I can't hate him, I can't. And I would end up freaking reaching out to him because I want him to say something that makes me not hate him. Oh, no. Because hating him made me hurt. But now, I hate him. I could eviscerate a bit. I could gut him. I felt bad at first. I felt like this was something we were both suffering from. I felt bad about the financial loss this was going to be for him. I don't feel bad anymore. You reap what you sow. I'm going through credit card statements looking for things I spent money on because I started picking up a lot of tabs when he bought that house because I was like, you're buying us a house to live in that I'm going to contribute to at a steep discount. Yes, I'll buy us groceries. Yes, I'll buy this takeout for you and your dad and me while you fix the roof. Turns out it wasn't my roof that you're fixing, so you and your dad can pay me back for your pad thai. I am a boiling teapot. I don't know what to do. But y'all win. I hate him.
Well, we certainly get a little bit more insight to the financial situation of this breakup. She seems to imply that he's had the greater financial loss in this. I'm curious how, because the only 2 things that she really cited that she contributed to were some groceries and pad thai, which meh. And from this video, likely because of the more vengeful tone, admitting that she's still constantly reaching out to him, and the whole financial stuff, this is where people start to turn on her a bit. Maybe he was afraid to break up because he thought that you would react like you are reacting now, posting your story on the internet, writing a song. Sorry, that's not what you want to hear. She says, so which one of his friends am I speaking to? LMAO. Raffi says, I'd like to hear his side of the story, but she says, me too. I also stumbled across this comment that made a good point. The family vacation without his GF of 3 years was a red flag. Let's all take note of that, please. And okay, yeah, the family vacation without her did kind of rub me the wrong way. I will admit I do want more information on that. Like, was she invited? Did she just not want to go? Because I feel like as soon as I started dating my husband, like even a few months in, they were already inviting me on things and my family was already inviting him to things. And so I got to imagine after 3.5 years, if I'm not like being treated as kind of part of the family, yeah, that would be a little off. But that's just me. I guess some people might be like, no, family vacations are just for family. I don't know. Another commenter brought this up and I want to address this. Sue him for half the mover's fee. And I'm just going to be completely objectively honest. She's never seeing that money again. Like, she's not going to have grounds to sue him. They were never married. They don't share assets. They were never even common law. I'm not trying to sound so cold about this, but for educational purposes, ladies, gentlemen, anything that you invest into a person without rings on each other's fingers and the correct document submitted to Uncle Sam is just for the love of the game. There is no guaranteed return on your investment. Anything you give to someone or invest in someone is considered a gift. They don't owe anything back to you, so invest accordingly. And she does address this in response to this comment. Never give up a career for a boyfriend. Don't mean a thing if you ain't got a ring. Sprightly says.
Hard disagree. Maybe if you come from a religious background, this makes sense, but in this day and age, I wanted to get married someday, but I didn't want to get married anytime soon. I didn't want to spend months and months planning this grand event and spending boatloads of money on it. I didn't have time for that shit, neither did he. He gave me 3 years in LA. He moved to LA to be with me. I never intended on staying in LA forever. Anyway, his time in LA was up. He was getting fed up. He wanted to go. I wasn't gonna like put that off and be like, no, we have to get engaged because we were young. Plus, I wanted time to go live in Texas and assess if I truly was okay with having that be our shared future and not have it be in a major music city, which is what my preference would be. We were very committed to each other. We were making 5, 10, and 20-year plans. It was very much talked about. And he bought a house for us to live together. If it wasn't for me, he would have just gone back and lived on the family farm. I took that as like the ultimate sign, like, yeah, he's really in this. I was wrong.
And, you know, fair enough. Marriage is not for everybody. And as some commenters point out, yeah, because husbands never leave their wives on a whim. You know, it could happen even if they were married too. The only thing people are pointing out is that if they were married, they would be held to a higher standard of asset division. There is a chance she could have been more financially protected with marriage, or not. It depends on who earns more money. Women are paying alimony these days. But this is where she starts getting a lot of criticism. How did you not see? A man is willing to move across the continent to be with you to make a 5 to 10 year plan, but with no engagement or actual plans to marry? Ding, ding, ding. I mean, damn, did you even get the ick? You literally described a man that either had no real plans to actually commit or could not comprehend how to. All you did in this video is elaborate on all the red flags you missed. Not to mention how you gave up everything for so little. You know the saying, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Yeah. I guess he's saying it's her fault for continuing to date him even without a proposal. I'm not fully with him on this one, especially because he used both the ick and the why buy the cow metaphor in the same paragraph. I know couples that didn't get engaged until like 7 or 8 years in, and yeah, that might seem like a long time to some people, but they're still together and happy now. So like, at what point does it become someone's fault? That's a weird argument. But this next commenter does a little bit of a better job of explaining what the dangers are that people were trying to warn her about, saying, that's a whole lot of excuses in a single video. There is a reason why so many people twice your age have given you that advice. Marriage is the true commitment. Anyone who makes excuses to remain single status just doesn't have their heart in it. That's okay too, but then don't go giving up your career and friends for a person who clearly wasn't as committed to you. You're not the first person to learn the lesson you did, and you won't be the last. And that's definitely a lot more valid. This woman says, baby, you are still in the stage of denial. She is saying don't give up your career, meaning don't give up your dreams for someone that isn't your family, and not even that. And yeah, I think he wasn't as committed with you as you think he was, clearly. Okay, so it seems like a lot of people really do not think that just dating for 3.5 years is enough to make someone family. A lot of people are kind of stuck on that no ring, not family mentality. What do you guys think? But in Sprightly's defense, I don't think that she was trying to give up her career at all. I think that she honestly believed that having her career and maintaining her career was possible in Texas. I think she was just trying to adapt her life around someone that she loves, which I do think is pretty normal. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what she did wrong, because if they do, that means that they could possibly avoid this ever happening to them. And I'm one of those people. I too want to know every piece of this puzzle, because no one wants their life to just get nuked out of nowhere. We all want to know what to do to avoid this. Like I said, this did go super mega viral, and Sprightly even ends up getting invited on the Today Show over it. And Sprightly had mentioned a few times that she really wanted him and all of his family and friends to see this, and eventually they did.
So my ex knows about the video, and he's not happy. Since the breakup, I've reached out to him way too much. I've written letters, I've begged, I've cried, everything. I know I shouldn't talk to him, but he has either ignored me or barely responded. All this after blindside dumping me after saying that he wanted a future with me. So that's been incredibly triggering. The distress at the abandonment can be really all-consuming and unignorable until I get a response. And therefore I started blabbing to the internet because I was just boiling over, and also it was like a Hail Mary that maybe he'd see it. So now that he's actually responded and I know how he feels about it all, I'm like, okay, well, if you promise to talk to me at a later date, then okay, I can be quiet.
Sprightly, no! 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 Bad, Sprightly, bad! As I always say on this channel, we cannot save these hoes, non-derogatory. Only God can save these hoes, but we can learn from these hoes. I know that a lack of closure and abrupt ghosting can lead even the best of us to do a little spirally spiral, right? But I am begging you to not blackmail people who don't want to talk to you into talking to you. That nothing good can come from that.
But now that I'm in the no contact period, after which we did agree to talk again, the panic of not getting a response and not knowing is gone. Like, is it really worth it? How great is our next email conversation really going to be that it's worth censoring myself? What am I going to gain? What can I possibly gain from this man at this point? I still want answers. I don't know if he's ever going to give them to me though.
Well, at least she kind of came back to us a little bit at the end there, kind of. She goes on to make so many more videos about this, to the point that we are still getting post-breakup updates 4 and 5 months after the fact. In this 4-month breakup video, she is talking about how she is still sending him letters. It's been a quarter of a year and she's still talking to this guy. So by now you've got this camp of people supporting her, and then you've got this camp of people who are kind of like, okay, I'm starting to see why he was feeling like the vibe was off. And then there's me, kind of torn. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I've gotten over every single breakup I've ever had remarkably quickly, but I will say that I stopped talking to them remarkably quickly. And so this whole like continuing to need to talk to them thing, I just don't understand that. Luckily, she does address this. She's reacting to a video that says, going no contact post-breakup isn't for everyone.
I find no contact is way too hard on a lot of you. When you've just had an abrupt breakup, it's very hard on your nervous system. I think that it can actually do more psychological harm. It would be like telling someone who has like big addiction issues to just cut the substance right off and go cold turkey. The danger of doing that is it encourages restriction, it encourages mental discipline.
If I'm in a room full of Oreos, and I really love Oreos, if I just tell myself I can't eat the Oreos, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life obsessing about the Oreos. Whereas if I just tell myself, go crazy, eat as many Oreos as you want, likelihood is I'm gonna get sick of them pretty freaking quickly. As someone who literally has had experience with disordered eating in the past, I know that to restrict something means that I have to spend every single second exercising my willpower not to do what my heart, my stomach, whatever it is, wants to do. When I saw this segment from Ken Reed, who is an Australian counselor specializing in attachment theory and dismissive avoidance, I felt so seen and validated in the way that I intuitively knew I had to handle things, even though literally everyone on the internet and in my personal life were telling me to do the opposite. And I do not think that I would be at this place if I was still trying not to contact him from pure willpower alone. Instead, I let myself live it out, and I'm naturally reaching a place where I'm letting.
She says, I couldn't have gotten to this place without doing it. But like, is this place a good place? Like, are you happy here? I can kind of get where she's coming from a little bit, but this ultimately didn't end up changing my opinion that no contact after a breakup really is the best, and it really didn't end up changing a lot of commenters' opinions either. This user says, if you're mourning a relationship longer than you'd mourn a person's death, it's time to stop finding influencer counselors and get a real one. This ain't healthy. Sprightly responds, oh, I don't have a counselor? Then who have I been meeting with every Tuesday at noon? And that's kind of a funny clapback, but it doesn't really do much to dismiss his point as it does agree with it. That she is behaving in an unhealthy way and that it's probably a good idea to get help. This user says, except people aren't Oreos. In your Oreos example, you can just go to the store, buy Oreos, and eat them whenever you want. But in a relationship example, you might very well decide you need them to heal, but they can decide they don't want to help you. And then you're really stuck, sometimes for years as you wait for them to help you solve it. To go low contact and depend on another person to do that with you because you need it is to give away your power. If they want nothing to do with you and you chase after them seeking help from them to resolve your feelings, you're in a really vulnerable position. That's why people say go no contact. Not because it doesn't hurt or because it feels good, but because the alternative, sitting and waiting and being stuck until they do what you have determined you must to get away from them, feels worse. People who go no contact do it because that's where they have power, as opposed to stalling their healing, wanting for another person to give them something. And like, that's really well said. Another comment I agree with completely says, I'm not really comfortable with the idea that a person should still be available to you after they end the relationship. I mean, personally, I think this particular guy needs to be taken to court for financial damages, but on a social and emotional level, it's not acceptable to keep contacting someone when a relationship is over. I've had a partner refuse to stop contacting me, and it's just not okay. Nobody has the right to decide they're going to stay in your life until they feel better. And like, yeah, I mean, deep in my heart, do I feel like he deserves some kind of karmic retribution for being so reckless with her time and feelings and money? Like, yeah, I do, but I don't think that that should come in the form of having to emotionally console her through their breakup. And Sprightly actually responds to this comment by saying, this video isn't saying they're forced to respond. Obviously, it's a two-way street. It's just about choosing whether or not putting the burden of no contact and self-restraint on yourself is the right choice or not. People treat it like it is, but I disagree. However, if the other person has you blocked, well then, choice made for you, LOL. And like, this is kind of female privilege-y, you know what I mean? Because she's kind of alluding to being blocked, but then also has inferred that she has attempted to contact him multiple times. And if that's the case, like, you really can't be doing that, dude. That is how an ordinary gentleman receives a harassment charge, you know? And like, stop means stop. And I know this guy sucks at communication, but like, he did break up with you. I'm just saying, if she was a guy, there would be so much more hate in the comments, but there's not. Why? Because pretty women will always get away with the shit way more than any dude. It is such a trump card. Dude messages his ex-girlfriend for 4 months straight after their breakup, restraining order. Pretty woman messages her ex for 4 months straight after their breakup, gentle pats on the back. But she did have some support. One commenter says, also, people want to go no contact out of pride, and that's a bit toxic to play mind games with others and yourself. And no, going no contact after a breakup is not a toxic mind game, it's a healthy boundary. But Sprightly responds, exactly. The worst part of the discourse around no contact is the make him curious, take your power back part. No, I'm supposed to be letting go of that man, not playing hard to get like I'm still in high school. Going no contact for that reason is still him-focused behavior. No, it's a you-focused behavior. Yes, some people do go no contact for the express purpose of playing hard to get, but it's not a good strategy because most people go no contact with the express purpose of being no contact. So that's what most people are going to be expecting. Like, whatever his reasons are, if it's as simple as he doesn't find you compatible, or if it's because there's been some side piece that he's been seeing behind your back this whole time, he has expressed to you that he is not interested in continuing a future relationship with you. So you have to respect that. And I mean, like, some of the people agreeing with her at this point sound kind of psycho. This user says, but serious question, how did you let yourself live it out? My ex unilaterally ended our relationship after a long and painful slow fade, and when I tried to reach out afterwards, he simply stayed silent. So how to slowly live it out if he just won't give me the chance to do that? Stalk him? Show up at his house? I know where he keeps the extra key. Hey internet, if this is your ex, change where you keep your spare key. You know what, even if she's not your ex, everybody just go change where you keep your spare key. At the 5-month post-breakup post, she was starting to lose me.
5 months post-breakup and I'm doing better. Just kidding, it's actually 5 months and 2 days. So 5 months ago today was actually the last time I saw him. I asked him to kiss me after he broke up with me because I was just trying to get through to him, connect something, and he said no. But when I was leaving and about to get in the car, I said, please kiss me, and he did. Sad.
Look, I've just been saying for a really long time that it's just really cringy to post-breakup just keep posting about your ex. You're allowed to. I totally defend your right to, but it is cringy. And yet I do still kind of understand the frustration, because it does suck that she never really got much more of an explanation beyond, I don't really think we're compatible. I didn't even date the guy, and I really thought after 5 months we'd at least have some clearer picture of what happened here. Surely he'd be seen with some other girl by now if there was one. Surely if there was something else, he would have admitted it out of frustration or panic by now. So I can't blame her for her curiosity too much when I read her entire interview with The Cut to see if there was any further tea or puzzles to fit together. And I'm glad I did, because we did get some further details. The interviewer asked, what was the conversation like when he told you he was trying to move back to Texas? Sprightly says, earlier this year, he told me he just wanted to go live on his family's farm. He had moved to LA to be with me. I always knew that wasn't where he wanted to be forever, and I never had any intention of staying in LA forever myself. But he wouldn't compromise at all. He's more of a Texas farm boy, and I am a musician who wants to be in a major city. Eventually, we compromised on being in a major city in Texas near his family's farmland. That ushered in talks of what our future would look like together. I actually asked at certain points, do you want to be with me? And he'd be like, no, I don't want to break up. I want to be with you. There was lots of communication, lots of assurances from him that he did want me to come, and then I came. So that definitely provided a lot more context for me, at least. I feel like it's a really common trope when the Texas farm boy type tries to turn a Broadway girl into a Southern wife, and you just can't make the switch up like that very easy. Another version of this is when vegetarian country music star Carrie Underwood, who won American Idol, married Mike Fisher, a Canada-born hockey player who grew up hunting, and then expected him to stop hunting just because they got married. The interviewer also asks, how much would you say you spent on the move? Sprightly says, I didn't go broke, but I used a good chunk of my savings, both to pay for the moving costs and to pay my bills for the months I wasn't working. I depend on my studio space to do work, and I didn't have one when I was traveling and moving in. I'd say I spent maybe $7,000. And I was so curious about the financial aspect of this, because in some videos she makes it sound like he was the one who lost more financially. In others she implies that she was the one who sacrificed more financially. And I will say, $7,000 is a lot of money. Yeah, I would want compensation. Like, I would ask at least one time. Tell me about the note he gave you. What did he actually say in it? It was just your typical, as special as you are, I just don't see a future with you. And I'm sorry that I made you move here, but I hope in time you can forgive me. It was pretty disappointing that it was such a short fucking note. And yeah, I do remember it being pretty short from the brief glimpse that she did show it, but I don't know if it really would have helped for him to make it any longer. You know, like, why draw it out? There's a quote from Ocean's 11, don't use 7 words when 4 will do, you know? Interviewer asks, what was going through your mind when he gave it to you? What did you think he was going to say? She says, as soon as he pulled it out of his pocket, I knew. Who just hands you a note and says, I think this says everything? He had all this time to have his doubts, and it sounds like he had them in the back of his mind, but didn't give in to them until that moment. But see, this tells me that there had to have been more red flags, because if my man handed me a note, I would think nothing but positive things were about to happen. I'd be like, oh, I bet this is another old doodle he found, or maybe even we're about to go on a scavenger hunt. Like, unless things had been crappy, I really wouldn't go straight to breakup. Then the interviewer asks what we've all been wondering. He told you he was breaking up with you because you were incompatible. Do you think that's the real reason? Sprightly says people are speculating. Was there another woman? Did his family talk him out of it? No. Knowing him, there is no other influence involved. It was purely a decision that he made, and I guess he was in denial about it for so long because he's been so out of touch with his emotions. He said that at the point we moved to Texas together, he had fallen out of love with me. And I think it's his fault that he kept those concerns bottled up long enough for that to happen. And that kind of confirms what I was thinking, that there really was no huge bombshell. You know, he was telling the truth. It just took an obnoxiously long amount of time for him to figure it out for himself. The interviewer asks, have you heard from your ex at all since the video? No, I had asked him to block me because I was having a hard time keeping no contact, okay? But before the video blew up, I sent him a really long email that was kind of like a closure email, like a 10-page dissertation on the demise of our relationship. It sounds crazy, but it was very well thought out and very therapeutic to write. I wanted him to respond to that. I don't know if he will, but last week I was really worried about him because people were trying really hard to find him. I did hear via a mutual friend that he is aware that it exists, but he hasn't seen it. Do you think that's true? Do you think he really just didn't watch it? Like, he just like, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm too curious. I would have to see it. But it goes to show what a radically different kind of person he is, that he's so divorced from social media compared to her. And this does sound like a Texas farm boy's worst nightmare. From the sounds of her comments, he really wasn't a social media person at all. And this is where the dots really started to connect for me. Being incompatible doesn't mean that either of you are doing anything wrong. It simply means that you've ultimately discovered that you don't want to live each other's lifestyles. Like me personally, I already know that I could never date a musician. And that's no offense to musicians. I love musicians. I just don't like consistent loud noises. I don't like being out late. I don't understand anything about music. I would be a super lame musician's girlfriend. And I think this guy was probably in the same boat, where he was able to recognize how cool and awesome she was, but that ultimately he just couldn't hang. And I can see why he would get stuck there trying to figure out whether or not he could adapt to that. And then the interviewer asks a really interesting question. You're going through this really traumatic breakup, but you've also had this go viral, and that's great for your career, I would imagine. Would you rather have had this go viral, or would you rather get back together with him? Sprightly says, I would probably take it all back and just want to be with him. I see in hindsight that he's not the best for me, but I was so happy with my little life with him. This is probably the most success I've seen in my career, but it's just a career. Then she adds, would you still get back together with him? And Sprightly says, I am embarrassed to say how often I wish I could, even though I know I can't. I wish he would just show up at my front door and fall to his knees and tell me he made a huge mistake and he's looked in the mirror and realizes how wrong he was and he can never forgive himself. But I know that's not going to happen. And that's how the whole article ends. I think in the end, this is one of those situations that's actually incredibly simple, but we've all decided to overcomplicate and overanalyze it anyway. I mean, as far as breakups go, this is objectively one of the best case scenarios. No one cheated, no one laid hands on each other. Money was lost, but it sounds from her posts as though he has paid her back pretty decently. No ugly divorce, no custody battle. It's like she and her audience are so easily able to say, well, I can't control whether or not I can message him over and over and over again post-breakup because that's just how I feel and I can't control how I feel. And yet it's taking a lot longer for them to reconcile the fact that he also can't control whether or not he's in love with her. By the end of this video, I definitely don't think that he deserves any kind of revenge or anything bad to happen to him. So the question is, have her actions so far caused him harm? I mean, even she herself seems to express worry that they have, so I'm torn. I mean, some of the best songs in the world are breakup songs, and a lot of them we actually know who they're about. Off the dome, I'm immediately thinking of Irreplaceable by Beyonce, which is actually about my friend's cousin, so every year she posts these memes. They don't know this is about my cousin. And most people's lives are not ruined because of these songs. Even All Too Well, the song by Taylor Swift that temporarily made the entire internet hate Jake Gyllenhaal, didn't really cause him harm. And she does blur his face and make sure not to name him, kind of. I did a very brief search of her Instagram and found his full face rather quickly, so he is identifiable. I feel like she has every right as an artist to express her pain and grief over the situation creatively, but I also fear that she is walking a very thin line. Especially because just this week, in response to the comment, "Give us his name, sister," Sprightly replies, "I've kept it quiet so far, but it may or may not be in a song that I may or may not release soon. You'll just have to wait till then. Tee-hee." I just don't think that name dropping him is necessary at all. I mean, maybe this is a hot take, but I think he's just some awkward, avoidant Texas boy who treated you really well until he couldn't anymore. And it's been half a year. And I'm not telling people you have to be over someone by X amount of time or that you're not allowed to grieve, but I am telling you that threatening him with even more exposure to social media, something that he seems to avoid like the plague just for not dating you, is a lot more cruel than anything he did to you. And that's not just going to affect any possible potential future friendship you could have with him, but it's very likely to affect your future relationships with other people as well. In my personal life, I have seen people who put on blast absolutely everyone they feel did them any sort of wrong, and I avoid those people. Now, all of that said, I do think Sprightly is a phenomenal musician. She mentioned in one of her comments I can't find anymore that she actually used to be friends with Chappell Rowan, and I believe that because her music is good. She not only has the voice of an angel, but also pretty much every other necessary ingredient to make a dream artist. A deep and personal relationship with existential dread, being just unhinged enough to commit to the bit, and having just a touch of the main character syndrome. And honestly, same, bestie. And as a proper artist, this does make her crazy just a little bit more forgivable. I said a little bit. After all, every single one of us has at least one favorite artist who has done something completely batshit. It is known. But like I said, it has left the internet torn, and I am of course curious to hear from you. On a scale of Sprightly slayed the breakup and totally owned this clown boy, to she's kind of a lunatic and is probably going to ruin this guy's life, to the more neutral ground of this is all kind of a nothing burger, where do you fall? My overall takeaway is that Sprightly seems to be a phenomenally talented and funny individual who's mostly just using art to cope. But that I do fear that she is close to taking it a little bit way too far. I think people can forget how much influence they really can wield on social media, and when you are a giant, you have to watch where you step. I also don't think it hurts as women to occasionally step back and ask ourselves, would I call a dude an unhinged creep if he was doing exactly what I'm doing right now? If the answer is yes, maybe we shouldn't count on getting away with it. Pretty privilege is not always the infinite get out of accountability glitch that people think it is. But that's the situation so far. I'll definitely update you guys if she decides to go full nuclear and blow up this guy's life, but my sincerest hope and prayer is that she simply moves on and just finds someone a lot better for her. If you liked my commentary on this, please go ahead and give a like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell because I do go live about twice a week. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way until the very end. It really does mean so much to me, and do consider becoming a YouTube member or a Patreon member if you want some exclusive content and early access to more videos. But all right, that is it. Until soon.